Hi, my name is Chris Percy, and I am a secondary science student in UNLV's GLP ARL program. This is my e-portfolio, and I'll share some of the features with you here. This is the home page with an image of myself on a fishing boat in Alaska, which I've used some of my background fish working as quality check in Alaska in the fisheries for Bristol Bay to make content a little bit more relevant to my students as it reflects a process of including my own background to help make content jump out to my students. It works pretty well. If you click this link down here or the link on the side, it will take you to the introduction page. And the introduction page shows you my background, a little bit of my professional background, how I ended up here. You can click here, it'll take you to the artifacts page where you download a resume or curriculum vitae, and talks about my path over the course of the last 8 years of going through college and how I ended up here as an education student and now teacher of record at a charter school here in Clark County. You click on the experience. The experience really is almost a journalistic documentation of my path and my first semester here as teacher of record at a charter school. And what you would notice most if you were to read through each of these weekly reflections is just exactly how much growth has taken place for me as a professional educator over the course of this semester. I started out with a lot of preconceived ideas of how it was going to be or how it should be, and I have definitely been changed by the experience of interacting with my students and learning as an educator as much as I am trying to teach others. I felt like it was necessary to include this. One, it ties in quite well with INTAS Standards 9 and 10 as far as recognizing my own professional learning and adapting my practices as an educator to better reach my students, but also it shows the vast level of importance of having good colleagues and good mentors and other professionals within the community that can give you good ideas or a little bit of critical feedback to help shape who you are as an educator. If I click on teaching philosophy, this, I have to admit, is about my fourth different revision of a teaching philosophy and is long overdue for another one. I wrote this at the end of my student practicum semester to include in my e-portfolio, and now that I'm finishing up my first semester as a teacher of record, I find that there are definitely things that I want to change. Again, this aligns pretty well with INTAS Standard 9 and being a reflexive professional and acknowledging not only our shortcomings, but where we need to make changes to be better educators and to reach our students in the classroom. If you click on the artifacts page, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the entire website. Here I outline a little bit more of my alignment with my content area and my classes and what I was hoping to do with my students. And I spell out the INTAS standards for each of these artifacts that I've included. As we scroll down, I've actually created a heading that says INTAS standards, and I outline how each one of these components ties directly to the INTAS standards. So this first one ties to INTAS Standard 1, which is really recognizing learner development, and that they have cognitive and socio-emotional, psychological differences that might change the way they interact with content or who they are as students within our classroom. And being an educator, you really need to focus on the fact that not everybody learns the same way. You're going to have to try different methods and tactics to reach them. In this particular artifact, I wrote a song for the school talent show that is essentially the scientific method written as a metal song, and then had several students in my class who were generally not the most engaged students within the classroom volunteer to be my band. So here I had an opportunity to really reach some students that are generally not outperforming their peers when it comes to content. And here you can see the lyrics of the song, or if you click here, it'll take the actual video of the performance. This also ties into INTAF Standard 8, which leads into instructional strategies in a way that we develop new plans of attack, if you will, as far as how we hope to reach our students in the classroom. It also aligns quite well with INTAF Standard 10, which is learning collaboration, and project itself required collaboration between a number of colleagues and administrators. There was collaboration with the students to write the song and to practice the song, and then the talent show itself was presented in front of the entire community, as well as including family members, their peers, other students, board members, you name it. They were there in the room that night, and it really, I feel like, did quite a bit to further the profession as a whole, showing that teachers are willing to have some fun with their students outside of the classroom and yet still tie it into content. We've got to make every effort to include students of all backgrounds, and this is the root of INTAF Standard 2. And what I've shared with you here is one of my own products for one of my classes, a technology class, where I acknowledge that we all struggle from time to time with procrastination. And a short 1-minute video, and this 1-minute video I then took to the classroom and showed my students to kind of bridge that gap with them, make them understand that, yeah, we all struggle from the same types of issues. In this case, procrastination. It was very timely when I showed it to my students, as many of them were late on turning in documents for the science fair, and I was getting a lot of pushback from students of how unfair it was that they had to take part in science fair. But the project itself, as far as the science fair is concerned, was 3-4 months worth of time they had to work on it. Of course, they waited to the last minute. They loved the video. It did a lot for kind of diffusing what could have been a pretty bad situation in the class with so many people struggling to hit a particular timeline. This particular video took me far more time than it should have taken to produce, 4 or 5 hours. I, of course, was late turning it in, so I acknowledge to my students that we all suffer from similar struggles. And again, I feel like this kind of ties into INTAF Standard 9, and we acknowledge our own professional shortcomings in trying to become better educators. I don't think there's one right way to learn science. The content needs itself to be incorporated in many contexts. We can include, like I did in this project, a weather data project, content from both a weather and a climate chapter, and forcing students to record data for 30 days for 2 different cities, Henderson being one, and then a city of their choosing from anywhere in the world. The plan for the lesson allowed students to either work individually or in a group. It involved them accessing online data sets to record their data. And then it required them to familiarize themselves with spreadsheet software in order to be able to place the data into the spreadsheet, work with functions within the spreadsheet software, and then produce graphs of their choosing. If you were to click on this link, this takes you to a student sample, and the student sample is a fairly exceptional sample. You see that she did exactly 21 days, which was the minimum for Las Vegas, and if you click on Los Angeles, she's got a solid 31 days worth of data. She's recorded and formatted all of the data within the spreadsheet. She's created functions to calculate the averages for each of those columns, and then created her own comparisons of things she found relevant. Temperature and dew point, as you can see, pretty strongly correlated here. Humidity and barometric pressure, also another fairly strong correlation. And visibility and wind, if you look at the trend lines, also appear to be somewhat correlated. It was up to each student how they wanted to compare that data. And I feel like this made for an excellent assessment of what they understood from the content, and being able to choose from the data what they would compare, and then to compare that in a way that was meaningful and relevant for them. This met a lot of the INTAF standards as far as in Task Standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, um, it shows a commitment to planning, planning from from an assessment standpoint, being able to apply content in a way that was meaningful for the students, and being able to get to understand the content well enough to incorporate that in some kind of lesson planning. It also created a learning environment that was engaging for the student, acknowledged all of their individual strengths and differences, and their various developmental levels of learners. We had students on IEPs or 504s, other students working with them in a group setting, and it involved a lot of peer-to-peer teaching and learning as a part of that project. The next, we always talk about the use of cell phones in the classroom. Here you see two images that students took upon themselves during an anatomy and physiology lab to take pictures through the ocular lens with their cell phone cameras. And if you click on these images are almost better than what's available in the textbook. So this aligns with InTASK Standard 8, which is employing instructional strategies that make the content relevant for the students as they move forward and in the classroom. This image you see is a group of students working together to build a bridge. You see a diverse group of students, all of them are engaged with the project. This shows an alignment to InTASK Standard 7 and preparing and planning instruction that's going to engage students at varying levels across the board. Here we see a group of students in the anatomy and physiology lab. They were incredibly proud of what they had created for their assignment here, which was used as a formative assessment to see what they knew of content on anatomical terminology, and they were all very pleased with what they produced, allowed them to take this picture and share it. This again ties into InTASK Standards 4 and 5, which is content knowledge and application of content knowledge. It acknowledges learner differences and brings them together towards a common goal in InTASK Standards 2 and 3, and it requires that you know the content well enough to create a plan that works for your students, which is InTASK Standards 7 and 8 are met there. Down here, if you're looking for more, you'll see some of my introductory lesson plans throughout anatomy and physiology, a MOB strategies matrix, a classroom management plan. Clicking on any of those will open those for you. And if we go to the resources page, I'm sharing here a list of resources I find particularly useful in the classroom. I've labeled these for teachers and students because many of these links, this link goes to the education portal for NASA, and they have resources for both educators and students listed there. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I used quite a few of the resources on this website for reaching students through the water and the atmosphere text, and it can be particularly useful for some of the other inquiry-based explorations we do in the sciences. U.S. Geological Survey, again, an education site from the USGS, American Physiological Society. These guys actually include things like lesson plans and already created lessons that are particularly useful for you in the science classroom. Engineering, go for it. This is engineering resources for educators. I found myself teaching engineering elective, and I needed to find some things quite quickly to put together lessons and projects for the kids that would really engage them with the content. This Next Generation Science Standards in the Life Sciences website is kind of a teacher share website with different lesson plans and downloadable content. National Education Association, this link will take you to their site, also has a wealth of information for educators, including strategies and classroom management plans. Vanderbilt Center for Teaching and Learning is an excellent site on Bloom's taxonomy and Bloom's revised taxonomy. Donors Choose, if you're needing funding for your classroom, probably my favorite website. We just had a project funded, and we're excited to get our classroom skeleton. Edmodo will allow you to create an online environment kids are already familiar with. I hope you've enjoyed this